Salva, how are you? And seven people would still like to work for Meta. Maybe they don't know that used to be Facebook. Hey, Roxanne. Cool. So we have basically critical mass here. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Kadima Momentum Monday series. This is my second ever webinar. Oh, and Wendy's talking about how she got overpaid. Well, I'm not going to be able to read this while I talk, so I'll look at these a little bit later. And Justin's telling me how he got his job. So cool. So I'm not going to read all the chat windows, the chat right now. I will stick to the script and then answer a lot of questions near the end. But as I was saying, thank you very much for joining the Kadima Momentum Monday series. We are going to have these the first Monday of every month to help you accelerate your career, focus on your career, whether it's at your current company and moving up, out, or over at your current company, or the best way to increase your compensation and to rectify the fact that, let's see, how many people said so far? 67% of people feel that they're underpaid on this call here with this very scientific study. So the best way to rectify being underpaid is to find another job. Gives you a lot more leverage, whether you choose to stay at your current job or go to another opportunity. So on today's Momentum Monday, we're going to talk about why now is the best time to be looking for a job. Many people have heard about the Great Resignation or the Great, people have called it other things, the Great Relocation or reallocation of jobs. But there are tons of jobs open, and we'll talk about how many jobs are actually open, which happens to be 107,000 plus jobs. And we'll talk a little bit about why now is the best time of year to be looking for a job. So first off, I will talk at you because we don't have unmute at this point. I will talk at you for about 30 to 35 minutes, and then we will open it up for questions at the end to be much more interactive. So if you have questions, put it in the chat here, and Alyssa, if you can try to track down some of those questions that you see in the chat, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I'll get to it after I do my spiel. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Alan Stein. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I've had a 26-year career working for some pretty good companies like Google, Salesforce, Facebook, American Express, UBS, and I am done working for a boss. I've worked for 35 bosses. I've learned a lot. I've worked for some shitty bosses. I'm not going to go into that now, or I can if people have questions. But I founded Kadima a year and a half ago to help accelerate other careers. And I'm doing that and enjoying that. So enough about me. So there are 7 reasons that I've quickly come up with, and I'm open to other people's ideas of why now is the optimal time to be looking for a job. So first off, roles are opening now and it's peak time. So I see a lot of people in this room come from the tech space, but some people come from more traditional industries. For those that have been involved in tech and have been involved at all with headcount planning, the way headcount planning typically goes at the tech companies is sometime in the summer. And when I say tech companies, it's really just a proxy for any fast growing companies, but a lot of these large tech companies are growing 20, 30, 40% a year, year over year growth. And with that comes more investment in resources. So in the summer timeframe, August, September timeframe, all leadership starts figuring out headcount planning for the next year. For those of you that have been involved in the process, it is mind-numbing, painless, repetitive, lots of back and forth on that. However, at the end of that exercise, usually what happens is the headcount growth is fairly aligned with revenue expected growth. So for instance, when I was working at Salesforce recently, our annual growth was going to be about like 20, 25% anticipated top line growth. And surprise, surprise, the headcount that was allocated to my team and organization was about 15 to 20%. And the reason why it wasn't as high as 25 or 30% is because I was in a support organization. But the sales orgs, the orgs that are generating more revenue, we're getting 20, 25% incremental heads. So if you have an organization with 1,000 people reporting to you, the following year, you will get around 150 to 250 roles to hire for. Those decisions are made in the fall time period. Those decisions are made in like September, October. There's lots of back and forth. There's lots of Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets or PowerPoints or things of that nature. But at the end of the game, you're essentially given as a leader, as a hiring manager, about 10 to 25% additional jobs. So if you're in an area of the business that's a big investment, it could be higher. If you're in an area of low investment, it could be lower. But generally, these companies are growing at 10, 20% year over year. I believe Salesforce in 2022 or 2021 was expected to hire about 8,000 people on a base originally of about 50,000 people at the beginning of the year. So I think that's about a 13% growth rate or so. And I think they're hiring above that. So the roles are identified in August. They are approved by leadership in October and November. And then they start to get allocated to the teams and they start to put recruiters against those roles. And those roles start showing up on the corporate websites. If you go to like google.com/careers or facebook.com/careers or so on and so forth, you will see a whole bunch of jobs open. So there are right now 107,000 jobs plus jobs open. And let me just share my screen a little bit to show you some of that data. And let's see if this works properly. Let me show this and we'll see if this works. Let's see. So hopefully people can, I can't see a lot here. So if someone can let me know in the chat if they can see it, but actually I can't see the chat now in the webinar. So I'm just hoping that, oh, let's see, I can see the chat here. We can see it, awesome. So what you see here are 75 different companies that Kadima tracks on a weekly basis. And when I say we track, my son Jonah, I pay him $10 a week and he goes to each of these job sites and identifies how many jobs are currently open there. So he's not child labor, although he is 15 years old, but he's giving me a pretty good deal there because I keep adding companies to it and it keeps becoming more cumbersome. I'm looking to automate it. But for now, what Jonah does is he will go to a site like, let's choose Datadog. Well, actually, I think that one's a little funky. Let's choose Google. He goes here and he looks over here on that hyperlink and he sees how many jobs are open. And he basically, 23.99 jobs. And let's see if, let's do a little quality control. He did that last night. So maybe there were 13 more jobs open. He puts that number in here. So you look in this column here and yes, Wendy, he is underpaid for his job. And I see Glenn, you see it's small. So you don't need to look at the very details of this. If anybody wants access to this spreadsheet, they can reach out to me after and I'm happy to give them access. But what you essentially see with a lot of these companies, and most of them are tech, some of them are other companies that I work with that I recommend for other people to work for. There are 107,000 jobs open. And if you look about a month ago, though, there were 101,000 jobs open. This number is going up, up, and up to the right, and these companies can't hire fast enough. And you will see this probably continue to increase over the coming 1 to 2 to 3 months as all these new jobs and roles are being opened. So that is another reason why it is a fantastically good time to be looking for jobs. There are a shit ton out there at all these great companies. So let me stop sharing now and get back to my full screen if I can figure out the right button. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first reason is roles are opening now. Told you a little bit about the timing of when roles are open. Secondly, there are 174,000 jobs open, 107,000 plus jobs open. 3, the Great Resignation flips the leverage to the job seeker. There've been lots of crazy stories out there where people are getting jobs and not even showing up on day one. They're just ghosting the company. That is not cool, but that's also an indication of how crazy hot the job market is. So while many folks on this call might, like, I'm sure definitely are hitting challenges in finding roles, because it's not an easy process. Just because there's a shit ton open doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy to find all these roles. But all of a sudden, the employee, the person looking for the job, has a lot more leverage than they used to have. And I know that there's some recruiters on the line here, and they can probably weigh in as well. But it is a crazy job market where you as a job seeker have a decided advantage in this process if you play it properly. So that's the third reason. The fourth reason why you should be looking now for your next opportunity is if you start looking now on December 6th, it's going to take you realistically about 3 to 6 months to get that offer and to start that job. So would you rather start a job in February, which is about 3 months from now, or do you want to wait like up to 6 months until June or July? If you're not happy in your current situation, why not do it faster? Why not make that move faster? Because it's going to take time. People, like, when I've been part of my job search, it has always taken between 2 and about 5 months for me personally, but generally I've seen take people about 3 to 6 months on average. So the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to find something great. So that's a fourth reason. The fifth reason to be looking now is competition is lax. There are a lot of people out there that are taking time during the holiday season. They're waiting for their annual review to come in. They're waiting to see if they got promoted. And they'll be like, oh, I'll wait till January or February to start looking. That gives you a lot of competitive advantage versus those people that are kind of hanging out on the sideline. Take advantage now. There's a lot of opportunity. A lot of people are kind of planning for the holidays, and it's important to spend time with your family and loved ones. But you can start the job search now, and you'll be facing some less competition out there as well. The sixth reason is, when we go back to that poll, looking at that poll, let me call that up again. People said how do you land your job? The number 1 and 2 selections was network, which was 30%, and an employee referral, which was 24%. So that's 54% of roles were identified by you. You guys landed roles from other people. So the people that you want to meet with, these informational interviews, they probably, it's a little slower during a lot of companies at this time. People aren't having holiday parties per se, but it's usually a little calmer during at the office. Many of you may attest to that. Some people, it's crazier time, but there's a lot of downtime in a lot of these industries. I can tell you from my time at Salesforce and Google and Facebook, it was calmer in the December timeframe. I know Amazon's a little crazy because it's a holiday season, but most companies and the people that you want to talk to may have some more time on their hands, maybe taking some PTO, maybe willing to talk to you while they're out of the office. No one's in the office, but while they're not actually logged into their work computer. Then the seventh reason is, if you move now, you can leverage a lot of year-end timing to negotiate your offer. So people sometimes hesitate to look for a job because they're going to wait for their merit increase, or they're going to wait for their bonus, or they're going to wait for some RSUs, restricted stock units. You do not need to wait for that. You do not need to wait for those vesting dates, because once you start talking to a company, you can use all of those upcoming dollars that are coming your way as bargaining chips. So for instance, if you have a $30,000 bonus coming due on March 12th, and you're like, oh, I'm going to wait until March until I get my bonus to start looking, I would highly recommend you start looking now. And if for some reason you get a great opportunity that turns up in a month from now, so let's say January 6th, you can use that $30,000 bonus that's coming 2 months from now, to tell that company, once you get the offer, you can use that as leverage and saying, hey, I have this $30,000 bonus coming to me in 2 months. I would really like to start with, let's call it Twilio. I'd really love to start with Twilio now, but I don't want to give up that 30,000. Is there a way that you can make that up or incentivize me to come over now? And often they will. They will give you either in a sign-on bonus, in maybe some RSUs or some one-time bonus to bring you over, or they may say, you know what, start March 12th, and then you can worry about in your mind if you actually want to wait that long. But don't use that as a reason not to be searching. Use that as a reason to increase your leverage and your opportunity. If you have a promotion coming up, even if you think a promotion is on its way, you can use that for leverage. So maybe if you have a base salary of $100,000 now, and you are anticipating a 4% merit raise, and you're anticipating maybe a 10% increase because of a promotion, so 14% on that 100,000, you can use that as an anchor of, hey, I am expecting to make $114,000 beginning in January, and I need to make more than that to move over here. So you can use that as leverage. So those are the 7 reasons. The 7 reasons roles are open now because of the way that headcount timing occurs. Secondly, there's 107,000 roles open. If anybody wants access to that spreadsheet, just hit me up after this and I'll be happy to share that with you. 3, the Great Resignation gives you as a candidate more leverage versus all these recruiters that are trying to fill these 107,000 roles. 4th, the job search takes 3 to 6 months. So why not start December, then wait till January or February to start that clock ticking. 5th is other candidate competition is relaxing, so you have more opportunity to and less competitive pressure out there. 6th, the people that you want to meet with, those connections that you need to nurture, may have more time on their hands, or even if they don't have more time on their hands, you can set something up for early January once they get back in the office. And 7th, moving now, you can use your year-end bonus, your merit increase, any upcoming promotion as additional leverage in your role. So actually, I spoke through all my areas very quickly, faster than I anticipated, and I will now open it up to questions. And I'm happy also to address how people can leverage this opportunity to land these jobs. And there's 8 ways to do that. 1, it's like setting goals, getting a clear target list of 40 companies. 2, performing self-assessment, knowing what your strengths are so that you can match that up to the right sort of role. 3, building relationships, building your network, leveraging that network. 4, tossing your hat in the ring, applying ideally through referrals. 5 is confidently interviewing for those roles. 6 is negotiating for more money. 7 is start the job right. So when you get into that job, the first 90 days are critical. And then 8, really think about your next step as up, over, or out within 2 years. So that was quick, but that's just like the Kadima method that I just want to share. And now for real, I'm going to open it up for some questions. And I'll look in the chat first, but if people want to raise their hand, I can unmute them. And if people have questions that they want to shout out, I believe I can unmute them. But let me see, I will start answering some questions that are in the chat here. And then if people actually do want to raise their hand, oh, and I see Omar has a question. So Omar, I'm going to allow you to talk now. And if you want to come up, put your camera on as well, that's fabulous. If it's a bad hair day for you, you can see just on voice.
Hi, Alan. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Omar.
Okay. My question to you is age an issue? I mean, because for someone like me, I've been looking for the past 6 months and I'm not getting any bites. And so I'm a little bit leery as to what's going on. Am I just approaching this thing kind of wrong? I can't figure this out. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, I know I have the qualifications, but I'm not getting any bites, to be honest with you.
So when you say not getting bites,
well, no response, no responses really.
How are you applying for these jobs?
Through LinkedIn. Most of them I'm finding through LinkedIn. I'm I've gone to Monster, Indeed.
So you're clicking on an apply button.
Yes.
Okay. So if you can look at the poll results, I don't know if I can put those up there, but our very scientific poll, only 22% of people actually landed their current job through a cold application, the method that you're talking about. So a much more effective approach that 54% of people here landed. And I can tell you, out of my 29 jobs I've had in my career, every one except for 5 of them came through networking and who you know.
Okay.
So I, like in your case, my suggestion, and we can talk offline further, my suggestion is identify those target lists of companies you want to work for rather than getting lost in the maze of Indeed and LinkedIn, which is overwhelming because there's 107,000 jobs open on just those 75 companies that I have. And you're looking at hundreds and thousands of more companies. So it's going to be information overload for you. So you may not even be applying for the right role. You may be applying for roles that are not fresh. So something that you should know about the job search is, especially for attractive companies, all these roles are hired on a rolling admission. So they open up a role and they start looking for candidates probably a week into it. And if you're at, like, if you're thinking Amazon or Facebook or Spotify or Twilio, they get like Salesforce was getting hundreds of resumes in within the first week or two. So if you're not submitting it quickly, and if you don't have a connection and you're not a perfect match, you're not going to get a response. Does that answer your question, Omar? I don't think it's like I know you indicated an age thing. There
Yes,
could
sir,
be
it does.
there could be age bias there, but happy to talk to you offline about your particular situation.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Sure. And let me actually answer a question that's in here in the chat, and then I'll respond. I'll take Saba off mute. So Saba, you're on deck after this question. So Jonathan asks, how do we advise we tailor our resume to get past the automated yes/no system, leveraging keywords identified in the job post or other tips? So Jonathan, I think you're referring to ATS or application tracking software, which does exist, but it doesn't work as well as you would think. And I know there's some recruiters on this call that would probably attest to that as well. And yes, Marissa is that recruiter that I was referring to, and she's saying there is not an automated yes or no. Marissa, if you want to raise your hand, I can take you off mute. And Marissa is a seasoned recruiter who can refer to answer this if you're okay answering that, Marissa. If you want to just raise your hand, I'll assume that you're okay answering it. Okay, I'll open this up for you in a second. But essentially, yeah, let me let Marissa, who is a trained professional, answer this question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Alan. Nice to see you, and it's fun to be on this. There's definitely a theory out there that there's automation. You send in an application, there's this technology that reviews your background, and if it doesn't match, you just get an automatic email that says you're not a match. But I have never seen an applicant tracking system that does that. And I've talked with a lot of recruiters, leaders. I'm in the technology space, so I'm always looking for kind of the best technology to use in my job and make myself more efficient. But nonetheless, never been an ATS that automatically declines an application. So when you do get a decline email, it is a recruiter or a hiring manager, or maybe a sourcer or somebody else in the recruiting team that has reviewed your application and hit a button to send you that decline. So that is every application kind of manually being reviewed. The only other time that it might not actually be reviewed is when they hire somebody into the job and maybe there's 200 other applications that haven't been looked at yet. They might send an automatic email saying, we filled the job, so we're no longer hiring and we'll keep your application on file. So that does happen where maybe they didn't actually review your application, but they filled it and then still manually sent you an email. It's like two things that I would say to tailor your resume, that is absolutely a thing I still recommend. Because when people are manually reviewing your resume, they're looking for the experience that they posted in the job, that they found from the hiring managers to match what your resume says. So I do still recommend tailoring and matching it as best as you can to the job description. The second thing I recommend is, if you are doing informational calls, is to talk to somebody who's in that job or a similar job and ask them what you should put on the resume, like what would really stand out. And that could be another form of tailoring. And hopefully also they'd be maybe willing to put your resume in for a referral. But those are kind of two tactics that I've seen people do that really make a difference in having their resume stand out.
Cool, Marissa. Thanks so much. Okay. Now I will answer another question that was in the chat here. So Anissa asked regarding my comment about if you have a bonus coming and how to leverage that with your new employer. And she mentioned, what if it's a smaller to mid-sized company and they can't pay you a $30,000 bonus in that case of matching that bonus? A smaller or mid-sized company probably has actually more flexibility sometimes than larger companies in terms of not following policy. And B, if they're not going to pay you that, they can probably also wait the month or two for you to get that $30,000 bonus and come on over. So once you get that role, if you approach it in a respectful and humble manner and say, hey, really excited to join this company. Just to give you a heads up, I'm due to get this $30,000 bonus from my company on March 12th. I can start on March 13th, but it's important for me to get that money unless there's some way that you can make good on some other way. I have not heard that not work for individuals. So that's always been effective. We'll take an in-person question here. Omar, you have your hand up. Is that from last time or you have another question? Actually, I'm going to let Saba talk because her hand is up, although it went down now. Let's see. Saba, do you still have a question? I don't. Let's see. Sorry about this. Yes, I see Saba. So Saba, I believe you can talk now. If you want, you have to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me, Alan? Now?
I can.
Okay. Hi, Alan. Thank you for this webinar.
Sure, Saba.
So my question is, like, I have been in the, before I had been in the education sector. I was a faculty, and then I did some consulting work as well there. And then I did my MBA from UK. And the problem now, though, it's getting a little frustrating for me because I'm not able to transition. Like my dream job was to get into consulting, and it seems like my previous background keeps haunting me, and the recruiters just say me on face, I mean, rather on mail, no, saying that some of the other reasons, like I don't have the skills or my previous experience. I just don't know how to do the transition.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're trying to switch careers. I think you said from education space to consulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about from the hiring manager's perspective, if they're looking to hire a consultant and they're looking at resumes of individuals that have consulting on their background versus someone like yourself that does not have consulting on their background, all things being equal, they're going to go with the person that has done it before. What I generally suggest for people is play to your strengths. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. One is get into a company that offers those consulting sort of roles. I don't know if it's technical consulting or what type of consulting, and happy to chat offline to understand more what you're searching for. But look for those companies that hire lots of those consulting sort of individuals and move in there based on your skill set, what you're strong at. If you're an educator, if you're doing training or leadership development or any development, like, can you like give a sentence or two of what you're doing now?
Okay, right now, this year I just completed my MBA and I'm looking for a job. But before this, I I had done freelance consulting for some schools. Then before that, I was in training and development in a university, as well as did some project management work. And my role was pretty diverse there. So it's kind of like I do have the skills. And as far as the skilling is, the extra, whatever skills are required, I am ready to put in effort and do that. But I'm really not understanding how to get a breakthrough and get into any firm, even at the entry level job, consulting job, so that I can make my way from here. Because I was in a notion that once I do my MBA, I mean, 1 year MBA should be enough for me to at least do a transition.
So that's what the MBA school probably told you to get your to get your tuition. So I got my MBA as well, and I was finance before my MBA. I was trying to get into marketing, and I did succeed there. But the way I did it is I got an internship, and I networked the hell out of target list of like about 20 or 30 companies that I knew I wanted to work for, that were in the New York market because I wanted to stay in New York, that were top marketing organizations, and that were analytical in nature. And I created my target list of companies, and then I started building out a network there. And that's how I got interviews at American Express, which eventually I got roles there because I just bugged the hell out of people there. And I got, like, in a nice way, in a humble way, and I got support there, so that when I submitted my resume, even though I did not have the sort of marketing experience they were seeking, they had enough people supporting me. So I think in your case, either you move to a role that plays to your strengths, or you really focus on building and nourishing that network. A couple of free resources there that are particularly good is a book called Switchers by Don Graham. So I would suggest picking that up. And also, I'm happy to chat with you further about taking an effective approach to achieve your goal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure, Saba. I'll go to a question in the chat room, and then Shakira, you're on deck because I see your hand up next. But first, I'll go. Someone asked a question about, can I elaborate on the up, over, or out in 2 years? So yes, happy to do this. So when I was at American Express, they had some info session or something. HR gave a session to managers and leaders talking about, in the first 6 months of an employee's time in a role, that they actually deliver like negative value to the company and the role. And like, if you look at a graph, it would go like this. And then after 6 months, you would get to about break even from the employee perspective. And then after about 12 months, for the next however long you can keep that individual in that role, that individual is delivering lots of value to the company, which in my mind means that I'm probably delivering more value to the company than the company is delivering to me. So what I generally advise people to do is to think about their job or their role in 2-year increments. So in 2 years, and this is just a rule of thumb, some could be 18 months, some could be 36 months, just rule of thumb, that if you are focused on growing your career, if you're focused on growing your compensation, if you're focused on growing your impact in your career, the best thing to do is move around. And within 2 years, what you should be thinking about is, hey, am I in a path to get promoted in this role that is up? Or if not, where can I move over within the organization and get more functional skills, or more maybe global skills, or work in with a different team and expand my network? Or if you can't go up and you can't go over, then the next option is out of the company. There are a lot of companies out there. You do not need to stay at that company. And the more often that you actually switch, there's a lot of research in there that people will increase their compensation, their skills, and their network, which benefit you long-term. So you don't want to be doing that every 3-6 months or so, but 2 years is a good window. And I know some people are concerned, oh, will I be seen as a job hopper? It hasn't come back to bite me in the ass. I've seen a lot of other people actually benefit from having that difference of experience and the difference of network and the difference of opportunity. So I've not seen that be a negative in my case. And there's some research on there and data as well. Next up, Shakira. you have a question. I'll unmute you now. I think you may have to do the.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Shakira.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am well. I messaged you, or you messaged me very briefly earlier, but I just wanted to check in. So I mentioned earlier that I'm actually currently in the I'm currently in the rework program. But in addition, I am kind of just trying to figure out and narrow down what I want to do. I'm coming from a social work background and trying to transition into tech. I've been told by a lot of people, obviously networking is important, but a lot of people are also saying maybe you should really reach out to a lot of startups. Try a startup. My question is, how are you finding startups? Do you just do like a cold search on Indeed? Is it best to reach out through Recruiter to find a startup, or what is your advice?
Yeah. Great question, Shakira. So not everybody is going to go right away into one of the FANGs. And if people don't know the term FANG, it was what Facebook is called. Now it's Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. And there are plenty of other, what I call stepping stone opportunities before you get to the company that you're really seeking out. And a lot of those are startups. A lot of those are lesser known companies. So it's okay. Like I encourage it. There are pros and cons of working for a smaller company. The pros are usually you have more breadth of experience. You can move a little faster. They will probably take a wider aperture of the candidates that they look at. The downside is you often don't get compensated as much. It doesn't have as much brand name recognition on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And there is a large disparity between qualities of companies. So some things that you can do to mitigate that risk is look at Glassdoor. If you haven't looked at Glassdoor before, it's a pretty good site for looking at employee reviews of companies. So you can look at companies and look at the Glassdoor reviews there. Secondly, I would still don't just say any startup. Try to think about the startups. Try to have a focused mentality around which startups would appeal to you. So if you're in the social workspace, and again, this is just making an assumption, maybe you'd want to work for Talkspace, which is a company that helps with connecting social workers, I believe, with individuals, or Teledoc, which is doing virtual video consults or things like that. So where there is some alignment with what you've done before and some similarity there. So I would try to think about a focused approach rather than just saying any startup, because I've worked for some startups that were good. I've worked for some startups that are bad, and there are more bad startups than good ones, just based on the law of numbers.
Thank you so much.
Sure, Shakira. Let me go to another question from the chat. So there's a question of regarding networking. Is there a best method you recommend to do this? Yes, there are several great methods. So one, you can read a book by Keith Ferrazzi, which is called Never Eat Alone. He gives lots of good tips there. There's another great book from this guy, Steve Dalton, The 2-Hour Job Search. But generally, some good tips that I have for building out a network is, again, start with a target list of companies that you want to work for. And if you don't have that target list, there must be some companies that you want to start looking at. If it's not 40, and there are ways to get to 40, create that target list first. Then think about who you know at those companies. And it might not be a lot of people, but then you can rely on alumni groups, maybe shared interest groups, your local church or synagogue or something like that. You can look at, if you worked at a big company and you're not there anymore, but like maybe you work for GE, you can look in LinkedIn of people that worked at GE and now are at one of the companies that you're looking at, and you can use that as a common bond of, hey, we both worked at GE and I see that now you're at Shopify, and I'd love to connect with you. And there are ways to be more effective of reaching out with people. The 2-Hour Job Search talks about it a lot. I'm happy to give additional guidance for individuals on that. But you reach out to people in humble, respectful of their time perspective. Do not send your resume to someone that you don't know. It usually will not land that well, but you can reach out to someone if you have some sort of commonality with them. You can say, hey, I see that we both are in the New York area, or, well, that there's like 9 million people in New York, so maybe that's not a good one, but maybe if it's a smaller city, or I see that we both went to this university and now you're at this company, which I'm really interested in. So you're trying to reach out and just get some time on that person's calendar. Say, hey, would you be open to like a 15 or 30-minute chat in the coming weeks, something like that. And then you follow up with them. And if they don't reply, that's fine. You're only going to probably get a 20 to 50% response rate, depending on the quality of message that you send out and just depending on the personality of the individual you're reaching out to. But you know what? The people that are not responding to you are probably not going to be the people that are going to be most helpful anyway. So if you send out 10 messages and you only get 2 to 4 responses, and you actually connect with those 3 or 4 people, those people will be more apt to be helpful to you, offer you advice, offer you guidance, and perhaps be a booster into that company. So again, it's a law of numbers. You need to dedicate some time to your job search, and you need to be, what I would suggest is be deliberate about the companies you're looking for, and then look for those type of people either on LinkedIn or your alumni network or some other aspect. And the more people that you meet through this, the easier it will become. And when you meet with those people, say you're meeting with someone at Asana, and you can say, oh, well, I'm really excited about Asana, but I'm also, and you talk to them for their full 30 minutes. And at the end of that meeting, you can say, are there other people at Asana that you would recommend I speak with? And then the final question I like to say is, I'm really excited about Asana. I'm also thinking about Airtable and Notion and Google and SAP and Oracle. What do you think about those companies? And by giving just like a short list of 5 similar sort of companies, that will trigger in their mind to either say, hey, you don't want to go to Oracle. Oracle sucks. And sorry, Wendy, I don't mean to be picking on Oracle there. I know you were there for there, but I'm just using that as an example. Or they may say, hey, I know this person at Airtable. Let me put you in touch with Joe from Airtable. And that will help increase your network as well. So you do need to invest in this. You will meet lots of good people. You will find some of those meetings being a waste of time, but it's a law of numbers, and it does work. So let's see, if there are other questions out there, and I have some questions in the chat. Another question is, so this was also about the network. If you don't have a network, how long will it take to build one out before you can start applying? So you do not need to wait to have your network to apply. So when you see a role that matches your skill set, the best bet is, if you have someone at that company, leverage that person. If you don't have somebody, get the application in quickly. So check the fresh roles, apply quickly, because again, they're all on rolling admission. So you don't need to wait to build out your network, but continue to invest time in your network. I tell people generally, if they're serious about the job search, sorry about that. I don't know, my dogs will get the door. Tootsie and Coco will get the door. We'll see what happens there. But if you you need to invest in the network, you need to invest in time to reach out to people, you need to invest in time. Previously, you had to have in-person coffee. Now you can have a lot of Zoom, so it's more efficient, although it's also more tiresome. But I'm less high on caffeine from less coffee meetings. So if you don't have a network, you can still apply. The better your network becomes, the easier it will be for you to get noticed and land the jobs. Let's see, other questions. Question is, will I be sharing the recording of this call? Yes, I will share a recording of the call. Then let's see, McNally's asking me, what am I, he says I'm looking well, so I appreciate that. Thanks, John. What are my top tips for networking outside your own company, given the lack of in-person events? And how much do you have to know someone to seek a referral? It's easier than ever to network out of your own company. LinkedIn has 730 million members on it. It's super easy to search there. There are also shit ton of events out there. I'm hosting this event now that 125 people signed up for, 65 people joined. There are events about everything now. You can look at those, you join those events, you reach out to people at those events, and it's amazing, like people that are going to those events are more prone and open to networking. So you will have better luck if you reach out to someone in this call here and say, hey, Saba, I saw you attend Alan's webinar. I see that you're working at XYZ company and I'd love to chat with you. It's amazing how open people are because there's selection bias of people that are in this call that are more open to networking, more open to socializing. So I'm keeping getting my door wrong here. I hope it's not that important, but anyway, it's probably one of my kids. They can stay out for 12 minutes because they forgot their keys. I don't think it's raining out yet. So let's see. So John, hopefully that answers your question, but it's actually a lot easier to network more efficiently if you choose to do that. Although it also gets tiring being in front of Zoom all the time. Let's see. Oh, Brian asked one of my favorite questions. How important are cover letters? Not important at all. I would think that this is one of the biggest waste of time that people do. Sometimes they help. It's so rare that they do, in my opinion. And Marissa, if you have a different perspective, you can weigh in on here. I have probably reviewed about 10,000 resumes in my life, and I've probably read about 10 cover letters in my life. Partially because very few people actually submit them, but often because I don't have time to. So I look at the resume. If the resume looks really interesting, but they're like, I'm curious about it, and they did submit a cover letter, sometimes I'll look at it, but it's so rare that I'm looking at the cover letter. You are better, it's a better use of your time to invest in your network, build your network, meet people than to have a cover letter, than to focus on the cover letter. If you want to do it quick and dirty, great. It's probably not going to make you stand out. I think the networking is a lot better use, and relationship building is a lot better use of your time, effort, and patience. Okay. So, hey, so my door keeps ringing. Let me go get the door. Marissa, do you mind like helping me out here and just taking any questions that people have? If that's cool with you, let me unmute you. Well, I think you're unmuted now. Marissa, can you speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Could you just like take any questions while I get my
Sure.
door? Because this could be important. I'll be right back.
Sure. Well, hi all. I wasn't expecting this. So just a brief intro, I guess. I've been in recruiting for about 5 years, but have industry experience prior in management, retail management, and healthcare administration. And so I've changed careers quite a few times, but I actually recruited Alan to a company, and we've become really close friends ever since then. And he's a great mentor of mine. So I always help out as it relates to like career advice or industry trends, or just kind of talking about what recruiters are doing today, and happy to answer questions. I did throw in the chat that I do read cover letters. So I would say I am probably more unique in this area. So I really love recruiting people from different backgrounds, different industries. I do have a huge emphasis on diversity hiring, and I've demonstrated a great track record of bringing in people from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. So for me personally, I love cover letters, but I do not get hiring managers often who will read them at the same level of depth I do. So I think Alan's tip there is still appropriate. Like if you're spending a lot of time on cover letters, you could probably spend that time in a different direction. But if it's something you want to quickly draft up as an explanation to your goals, your interests, or just the motivation behind changing an industry, a couple of sentences can definitely catch the eye of a recruiter, and it leads less up for interpretation. So I think that's kind of the value when people have told me why they're looking to change an industry, and it's easy to read that on their cover letter. I'm not taking guesses at it, and I think it can really help in that aspect. So I don't have the control features maybe.
Oh,
that
Marissa, I'm
Oh.
back.
Okay, I was like, I don't know if people are talking, if I
No,
would
no.
be able to hear them.
It's cool. I'm back. Thank you for taking that. And it was my kid. I was right. And it was a kid that I expected that would forgot his keys. So, cool, Marissa. Thank you for your, yeah. So cover letters may work in some cases, but so there's different opinions. Cool. So there's a few questions in here. There's a question about explain the Great Resignation. So for people that haven't heard of that term, there's a big trend in the marketplace now. A lot of people are resigning. There's lots of reasons why they're doing that. They're not happy with their current job. They're isolated because of the pandemic. There's other opportunities for them. They're not motivated or whatever. But a lot of people are resigning from jobs right now. It's a big term going around, the Great Resignation. Glenn asks, is there any value in getting services like Jobscan where it helps you align your resume to keywords from the job description? I'd say very low. That's helping the ATS to get through the ATS, application tracking software. Again, looking at the quick responses from the 48 people here, where only 21% of people landed jobs from a cold application through a resume. Also knowing my experience, resumes are table stakes. You need to have you need to have a decent resume that conveys your story. But to try to optimize it and pay for a lot of services for it, I don't think that's a good use of money or time. Asia asks, would you suggest, if choosing the startup route, to still simultaneously network and connect with employees from your original target company? Yes, yes, yes. Do not put all your eggs in a single or multiple basket. Put it in at least 40 baskets of 40 different companies you're looking at. You may want to look at some startups. You may want to look at some more established companies. Look at Glassdoor. I'm happy to send people some lists if they reach out to me on good resources of how to identify your target list of companies. Then I see a question from my sister here. So definitely nepotism. Her question gets picked on here. Her question is there any advice for advancing to a management role, either within an existing employer or the new one, without having prior management experience? Yes, definitely. It's hard to move out of your company and into a manager role, and I would not advise that generally for multiple reasons. But you can get management. You can either move as an IC. An IC is an individual contributor, which is opposite of, well, not opposite, but there's you're either a manager of people or you're an IC, an individual contributor. And if you're an IC now, you can move to another company as an IC with the opportunity to manage. Or if you want to get management experience at your current job, which is the more recommended route, have a conversation with your manager, and hopefully you have a supportive manager who wants to help you with your career. If not, maybe think about getting out of that team at some point, but let your manager know that you have a desire for management experience. See where opportunities exist. You could be an informal team lead, so not formally having reporting, direct reports, but maybe leading them, mentoring people. There are opportunities to manage interns. There are opportunities to manage contractors as well, or vendors. So there are lots of different opportunities where you can start to dip your toes in that and demonstrate your desire and your capabilities, and then move that into an opportunity of actually leading people. For me, I started managing interns, then I managed some contractors. Then I went to managing a small team of 3 to 4, then a team of 14, then a team of 80, then a team of 200. So it grows, but also at some point, maybe you find out you don't want to manage, and it's okay to do the reverse path as well. Hopefully that answers your question, Robin. Otherwise, we can talk anytime. You know how to reach me. Next up, Meredith asks, do I feel that the Silicon Valley tech community is so deeply interconnected that it's not worth applying for those roles, and instead focus on tech companies headquartered in other areas like New York, Boston, Atlanta, DC, Chicago, etc.? No, 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 because all of those companies have office locations in all those other in all those locations as well. So I worked for Google, I worked for Salesforce, I worked for Tableau, I worked for Facebook. So 3 out of the 4 were based in California. Tableau was based in Seattle. I worked out in New York the whole time. I had to travel on occasion because I led global teams, but I did not need to be in those locations. And especially now with COVID, I highly recommend people to say you are open to relocation, because probably everybody is open to relocation for the right price. And so don't worry about like only being in the Bay Area. There's tons of jobs all over the place. Salesforce, for instance, even before COVID, 17% of Salesforce was remote before. So I was actually working in the same location I am now when I was working at Salesforce. I'm no longer at Salesforce, but I was still working out of my room in Brooklyn. Let's see, another question. Do I have any resources, recommendations for how to best network with companies you currently do not have connections? So yes, read the 2-Hour Job Search by Steve Dalton, or feel free to reach out to me. I'm also happy to tell you how to do that. But leverage other networks that you have, other alumni groups, other common bonds. Let's see. I'm just looking through this. If people have questions now, I will take a couple of more questions. I've been conflicting information on companies' willingness to hire remote employees. Do you have any insight there? I don't know which company cannot afford to hire remote employees, except service-based companies that like restaurants or hotels where you need to be on site. But for the software technology companies, they're all hiring remote. There's still some companies that are more on-site biased, like Apple is and Netflix tends to be as well, but most companies need to be flexible now. And then, let's see, what are ways to get after the true culture of a company? I've tried asking through networking within and outside of companies, but I feel people sugarcoat to avoid being negative and sharing true opinions. First off, if you do network and you do meet enough people, they will tell you the truth. You'll start to triangulate those different data points. Glassdoor is good. You can look at the numbers, and then you can look at some of the qualitative feedback as well. And then, but I find that if you have good conversations, people do not sugarcoat and will tell you the truth. Let's see. I will take one more question and then we're at 4 o'clock. But as Alyssa says, you can book a free call with me at kadima/free-advice. It's in the chat window, and Alyssa's been awesome to keep putting that up there. And let's see. Oh, and I think that is it. So thank you very much for everybody who joined today. Shakira, I see that you still have your hand up. Is that just because you failed to put it down, or okay?
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. But thank you for everybody for joining. Hopefully this was valuable. It's a great time to be getting a job. 2/3 of you say you're not getting paid what you deserve. It's time to get paid what you deserve. There's lots of opportunities out there. If I can help, you know how to reach me. And thanks a lot. Have a happy Monday, everybody. Bye-bye.